Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Double Header Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mahal, and today is Thursday, November 6th. The time we're recording is 4:28 p.m., and today we are going to be talking about the World Series, Game 7, and who won it. We'll also be talking about some quick off-season and free agent stuff. And then finally, we will finish talking about the Seattle Sounders defeating Minnesota United in Game 2 of their first round matchup of the MLS Cup playoffs. So, without further ado, let's get into it, y'all. So, beginning with the World Series. Now, at this point, you probably all know, Los Angeles Dodgers defeated the Toronto Blue Jays in Game 7 of the World Series. And let's start with the positives. What a game. And this is why we love baseball. This is why baseball is so unique. This is why baseball is my favorite sport, and why I think the MLB postseason is the best, is one of the best, if not the best postseason in all of sports. I think hockey might slightly be better, but baseball is a bigger sport in the country for the most part. So I think I do think the MLB playoffs are the best of the 5 major sports in the United States, and I think this year was no different. You look at DS, you look at the Mariners matchup with Detroit, and you look at Game 5, that 15-inning game. Then you go look at the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Obviously, great moment for the Blue Jays, not so great for us Mariners fans, but great moment for George Springer in Game 7 of the ALCS. And then the World Series, you get an 18-inning game in Game 3, and then you get a fantastic game in Game 7, another extra innings game. Dodgers tied up in the top of the 9th inning, down a run. They tied up with Miguel Rojas, of all guys, your 9-hitter, hitting a home run off of Jeff Hoffman, the closer for the Blue Jays. Blue Jays 2 outs away, and then all of a sudden Miggy Rojas says, no, this game's not over. It goes to the bottom of the 9th. They load the bases, and it just peak baseball in every way. Blake Snell coming in, Yoshinobu Yamamoto coming in. Truly, what a game. And the 18-inning game in Game 3 was like, this is a good game, but it's like bad baseball. You know what I mean? This was also good baseball. It was fantastic stuff all around. Sorry, give me a sec. But it's just a great game, and what a way to end the season. And Blue Jays fans, of course it hurts, and it hurts for a lot of baseball because the Dodgers are a problem. They're a super team of sorts, and everyone talks about Dodgers spending too much money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not in the they're spending too much money boat. I'm in sort of the boat, though, that they are sort of hurting baseball. But to me, it's not because they are spending all this money and their payroll is as high as it is. To me, it's about the deferrals. And you talk about how much money they're spending. They're already spending the most in the league, and then you include the fact that Shohei Ohtani should be getting $68 million more every single year. And their payroll is $140 million higher than the next highest team. That's an entire baseball team's payroll higher than the next team. That's basically an Oakland A's higher than the New York Mets, who are second. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. That's bad for baseball. And it's not the fact that they're spending money. They're spending so much more money. It's that they are getting the plethora of talent from Japan. They're getting all those guys because of Ohtani, and that makes sense because you'd want to go play with your other Japanese players, and you want to go play for a team that's going to win World Series. But you shouldn't be able to spend that much more money than another team. And of course, with a salary cap would come a salary floor, and the bottom teams in baseball also are hurting the game. I'm not naive to that. I'm not naive to the fact that it's the top end and it's the bottom end. But to me, well, it used to be the bottom end that was more of a problem. To me, now it's the top end, and it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it's I think that there are people hurting the game also that are saying, oh, it's just because the Dodgers are spending so much money. But no, that's not what it is. And I think the people that don't know how to frame their argument are hurting the game in its own way. And you know, I don't have an exact analogy for it, but it's the type of thing where it's like, if you don't know how to properly argue it and you're not informed enough about it, then to me you shouldn't be arguing it in the first place. And obviously, this is coming from someone that loves baseball, follows baseball, all this stuff, but that's my opinion because I look at it like this, right? I have had this debate with multiple people, and when I explain it, it's the deferrals. It's the fact that they're spending more than what they should be allowed to do. It's the fact that they're already above the luxury tax, and then they're spending all this money that's not even accounting towards the luxury tax. And the luxury tax is there to be a salary cap of sorts. And what they're doing is neglecting that sort of thing beyond just like, oh, let's go spend all this money and we'll deal with the punishments from the luxury tax. No, they're not even dealing with the amount of punishments that they should be dealing with because they have deferrals from Teoscar Hernandez, from Blake Snell, and obviously the big one being Shohei Ohtani. And for the players, yeah, it makes sense why you do it. You're still making money from all of these deals, You're still making a couple $1 million a year. Like, like you're still making a good chunk of cash, and then you get some money without the California taxes on top of it. And I don't want to go into the tax thing because I don't understand that to a large enough extent to be able to have a true opinion and take on it. But when I look at the deferrals, I look at it like, yeah, other teams can do this, but why would you as a player forfeit that money now unless you feel really confident you're going to go win and be on this truly elite team like the Los Angeles Dodgers are? And in that way, it's like, okay, but are the Dodgers really doing anything that bad? And to me, yeah, you are, because it's beyond just what the players want to do. And you want the players to have power in the league, obviously. You want the owners to not have all the power. But at the same time, too much player power also hurts the league. You look at the NBA, right? Where I'm not a big NBA fan, but from an outside perspective, I watch the NBA and it's like, well, these guys can sort of just choose who they want on their team. They can be like, go sign this guy, go trade for this guy, because those guys then can request a trade to whatever team they want to then go play for. And and obviously that in some ways that's a good thing, because you then get these really fun teams of guys that all want to be together, and then you get fun dynamics on those teams, and you get cool friendships and stuff, and that's fun to follow. But to me, sports it's a business, and that isn't the business side of it. Sports obviously inherently are a game. But at the highest level, they are also a business, and it comes back to GMs when you have to go trade a guy. Players know that it's a business. You're going to get traded from one team to another, one city to another. That's just how it works, and sometimes that's the smartest thing for an organization to do. You think about Juan Soto getting traded from the Washington Nationals, and look at all the guys they got back. C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, big one. At the time, Robert Hassel was a really big prospect. He hasn't really panned out in the same way, but it's the type of thing where it's like, was Juan Soto butthurt by that? No. He understands why he got traded, because the Nationals weren't a good enough team. They needed to retool. And their fans should have understood that too. And I'm sure a lot of them did, and some of them I'm sure didn't. But it's the same thing here, right? Baseball is a business as well as a game, and you want multiple teams to be competitive. You don't want one team to be spending all the money, all the capital in the league, having all these best players, all the best assets. You want those assets to be spread around. You want multiple teams to have top players, to have secondary players. You want multiple teams to be able to have S tier players, A tier players, B tier players, C tier players. You want each team to be fairly even. And when you have a team just stocking up all the S and A tier talent, then it's really hard for other teams to do that. Not only because they don't maybe have the financial means that the Los Angeles Dodgers have because they're in a smaller market, or they don't have the TV deal that the Dodgers have, but also guys don't want to go sign with a team that's the only guy that they can sign for that large sum of number, because then it's like they're the guy and you don't have as good of a team around you. The Dodgers are like, let's go sign Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto in the same offseason. Let's go sign Roki Sasaki and Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and Teoscar Hernandez all in the same offseason. Let's go sign Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. All of those guys, Tanner Scott. It's frustrating from someone that just loves the game of baseball, because I want to see teams you don't expect to win the World Series to win the World Series. I want to see the Detroit Tigers go play in the World Series. I want to go see the San Francisco Giants, who haven't been competitive in 10-ish years now, go play for a World Series, go have an opportunity. The Milwaukee Brewers, I want to see them go have an opportunity. But you run into the juggernaut that the Los Angeles Dodgers are, and what are you supposed to do? Right? You face Blake Snell one day, he goes 8 innings, probably could have gone 9, and then Yoshinobu Yamamoto throws the next day, and it's like he goes complete game, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? And then the third day, it's like, oh, we're backs against the wall, and I'm facing Tyler Glasnow, another ace caliber pitcher. Like, truly, what are you supposed to do? It's ridiculous, and I don't want to just and complain, but as someone that loves baseball, because anyone can go on a run and win the World Series. Anyone can go do damage if they get into the postseason. A team can surprise you and go all the freaking way. The Dodgers aren't allowing for that because of the money they're spending, because they have too much talent. And it would be different if that talent was coming because they were able to supplement a good farm system where they're bringing up guys with trades or with free agent guys because they have a bit of a bigger payroll. And they're very good at all that stuff too. And they were a really impressive franchise and organization, and they still are. But I want to see teams win because they're good at all three facets: at developing, at trading, and at signing guys. And building a roster through all three ways. I don't want to see a team just building a roster based off of just going and throwing money at the wall. It's the reason why the New York Mets haven't been successful, because they haven't been able to develop guys. And they've gone and thrown money at the wall, and their roster just hasn't stuck. But the Dodgers are throwing so much money at the wall that it's hard to fail. Anything but a World Series appearance and championship is a failure to them. That's sad. That's embarrassing for the game of baseball. Great for them, obviously. Cheers to you for going and building a super team, going and building a dynasty. But I want to see other teams win. I want to see other teams be competitive. I don't want it to be, I look at the World Series or the MLB postseason bracket and I'm like, can any of these teams beat the Dodgers? No? Okay, Dodgers winning the World Series for a third straight year. I don't want that to be what 2026 is like. And it's not just because they're spending the money, like I said. It is the deferrals. It is the fact that they are spending more money than what the luxury tax and what their payroll actually says. That's the problem to me. If you were just going and spending all that money anyways, then it's just the New York Yankees of the past. And nobody likes that, obviously, but you're not harming baseball in the same way. You're not using the rules as a means to bend them and test them and do what the Dodgers are doing. And maybe that's the perspective of someone that is not a Dodgers fan. And obviously that I'm not a Dodgers fan. And that is my perspective. And it might be skewed in that way. And I will admit that. but from the perspective of a Seattle Mariners fan that loves baseball and wants the randomness of baseball to be the beauty of it, they are hurting the game. They are the reason 2027 is not going to have a season, or is going to have a delayed season. To me, it's because of what the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing, and that sucks. Because I want 2027 to be a year where I see 162 games of baseball. But as I look at it right now, that's not what's going to happen. I'm not going to get to watch the Seattle Mariners play 81 games at T-Mobile Park that season. And that sucks. I wish it didn't have to be that way. But that's how it is. That's how we have to live with it. We'll see how long it keeps up, because some of these guys are starting to gain an age. But if they can just continue spending money, then it's hard for your window to close. Moving on, just a couple brief things in terms of MLB free agency in the offseason beginning. The offseason officially began on Sunday after the World Series ended. And then free agents officially can sign with any team as of today. So great to see that. It'll be interesting to see where some of these top guys go. You know, the Kyle Tuckers of the world, Pete Alonso. I'll be, as a Mariners fan, really interesting to see where Josh Naylor goes. Eugenio Suarez, Jorge Polanco, and now Shota Imanaga and Pete Fairbanks, both of whom had their options declined by the Cubs for Imanaga and the Rays for Fairbanks, both of whom could be very interesting targets for the Seattle Mariners, as well as other teams, of course. I'm going to be the first one here to say, as we were talking about the Dodgers earlier, I really hope Shota Imanaga does not go to the Dodgers, because I really like Shota Imanaga. I think he's a really good pitcher, and I don't want to have to not root for him because he plays for a team known as the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't know if that's a hot take. Pete Fairbanks, a reliever, will be one of the top arms in terms of relievers on the market. Edwin Diaz, another one. Ryan Helsley will be, I'm sure, a hot commodity. Devin Williams will be an interesting guy to see what happens with him. Alex Bregman is free agent. He declined his option. He will be a free agent. I'm trying to think of who else. Cody Bellinger will be a free agent. Free agent list is actually really interesting. Kyle Schwarber, another free agent. Let's just pull up the free agents actually right now. Let's see. MLB free agents. So Framber Valdez, another interesting free agent. There's a lot of free agents this offseason. It's not like the craziest class. Like, it's not like the shortstop class that we saw, a couple of years ago. But why am I getting an ad? Why am I getting an ad on Spotrac? What is happening? That was very weird. Sorry. Alex Bregman, Cody Bellinger, Pete Alonso, Jordan Montgomery, JT Realmuto is another really interesting one. And the Phillies actually will be a really interesting team this offseason. They have some pretty big free agents. Obviously, like I said, JT Realmuto is a free agent for them, it looks like. Another guy is Kyle Schwarber that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Nick Castellanos apparently is going to be gone. They also are losing Ranger Suarez, so it does feel like their window is starting to come to a close. Bryce Harper is gaining in age. Alec Boehm's really getting closer to free agency. Bryson Stott hasn't been the guy they wanted him to be. Trey Turner is gaining in age, but he's still obviously a really solid player. I think of who else they even have on that roster. Aaron Nola coming off a rough year. Zach Wheeler going to come off an injury. Christopher Sanchez had a breakout year, so he was very good. And I'd expect him to probably be very good again next year. And then they have some interesting prospects. The Aiden Millers of the world. What else they got? Justin Crawford's another interesting prospect that they have. They now have Gage Wood in their system after drafting him, who threw a no-hitter in the College World Series. What else? But yeah, the Phillies will be really interesting to see what they do this offseason. Like they're one of the more interesting teams. Another one that's going to be interesting to me at least is St. Louis Cardinals. They seem like they're in need of just sort of tearing it down for a few years, rebuilding. They got some really interesting pieces. Brendan Donovan, who if you listen to my Mariners podcast, the On the Diamond Into the Deep podcast, you know that I love Brendan Donovan and have wanted him for like 3 years now to be in a Mariners uniform. But Alec Burleson, another really interesting guy. I believe Nolan Arenado will probably be traded finally this offseason. He's an interesting guy. Wilson Contreras, an interesting guy. Even Nolan Gorman, someone interesting. Jordan Walker, a little bit interesting. I don't think Lars Nootbaar has been. I think he's hurt maybe or something, but he would be interesting also. There's a lot of really interesting players on that Cardinals roster that might get traded if they decide to sort of tear it down for a few years, do a little quick rebuild. I think back to what the Mariners did in 2018 after the GG and the hitting machine and Nelson Cruz and Robinson Cano and Felix and Kyle Seager window sort of came to a close. It was like, they're not going to do it. They're just too mediocre. And the payroll is just too high. We're not able to add anything. And that was after Jerry DiPoto obviously came in. But I do wonder, looking at it, if the Cardinals might do a similar thing because they do have some prospects. They do have some interesting guys in that system. You know, J.J. Weatherholt's the first name, at least for me, that comes to mind of an interesting guy, but that's just one guy. Do you have other guys in that system? You have some other ones, but nobody as big as him. So can you go add some talent to that team, whether that's guys to play next year and maybe you hit on some guys like what the Mariners did with J.P. Crawford, or whether that's more guys that are going to be prospects and it's guys more like what Jared Kelenic was for the Mariners when they traded for him. Obviously, he didn't pan out, but so maybe not the best example for Cardinals fans, but you get what I'm saying, where it's like you can do a rebuild in 2-3 years pretty easily and have talent start to come up during that window and then supplement it after that once you start to see guys starting to work, stuff like that. And the Cardinals are a team that will spend money, but I don't think that they're like, we're going to be competitive in this division or in the National League for another 2-3 years at least. And by that time, Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, at least both will be gone. So it'll be interesting, like I said, to see what they do this offseason. They're one of those teams that I'm really watching to see. They're one of those teams that's sort of on the line, and depending on which way they go, can change the offseason drastically. But yeah, obviously day one of free agency, like I was saying, and I love the baseball offseason. I'll be talking about it on here all offseason, all winter. So hopefully we get a good winter. Hopefully we get some cool, interesting stuff going on. But finally moving on, should be talking about this for the last 5-10 minutes or so, but Seattle Sounders, they do what they needed to do back at home, back at Lumen Field, and they defeat Minnesota United by a score 4-2. They break through the Minnesota United low block. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Minnesota United play a style of football, of soccer, however you want to call it. I'm going to call it football. A style of football that is, you just sort of sit in defensively, you absorb a lot of pressure, and then when you get them to give the ball away, what was I saying? I just totally lost my train of thought. Okay, so they sort of sit in, and when they win the ball back defensively, then they quickly pounce and try and go score on the opposition. They just take in a lot of pressure. Teams get a lot of shots against them. They hold 60-70% possession pretty easily. So it's a frustrating style to play against. So for the Sounders, it was frustrating because then it goes straight to PKs. If you can't score in the 90 minutes that you play in a football match. And the Sounders weren't able to do that game one. They go to PKs, and Minnesota United win in PKs. Sounders down a game in a 3-game series, which is really difficult to come back from. But game 2, they switched some stuff up. They go a little bit more direct. I haven't been able to rewatch the whole game yet, but they went more direct. They went more with long balls. And they actually, like I was saying, more direct in terms of long balls. But once they were in that final third, they were getting guys in behind. They were making runs. And then they were just sort of spreading that defensive unit out. It was, how can we attack through all 5 channels of the field? And I'm someone that, my dream, if you don't know, is to go into commentary and go into sports media. And I have been, at college, I have been commentating soccer games. So if you've listened to those at all, and little plug, CSBN, follow on Instagram, and you can see me commentate some soccer games and basketball games in the winter. But you've heard me talk about how there's 5 channels on the field. There's the left wing, there's the left half space, there's the middle space, the right half space, and the right wing. A good offensive team is able to utilize all 5 of those vertical channels. What I saw the Sounders able to do on my first watch, at least, of that game, was they were able to utilize all 5 of those channels. They were able to utilize Alex Roldan, your right back, in that right wing, and even the right half space a little bit. And then you're able to use your strikers in the half spaces in the middle space. You're able to use Nuhu, your left back, in the left wing. And you were actually able to use Jesus Ferreira out there too, but also in the half space. They were a little bit right-hand heavy from what I remember most about that game. But for the most part, it was, how can we utilize this whole field? How can we hit shots and hit crosses from all over this field to get balls into the box? And it was, let's not dribble at guys and take shots. Let's get in behind. Let's put crosses in and see if we can create some chaos there. Their first goal came from a corner. Ball bounces out from a corner. Beautiful hit by Obed Vargas, who, by the way, what a player he is. He finds the bottom right corner, goes through a bunch of traffic. Dean St. Clair not able to get a hand to it, or not able to get a strong enough hand to it. And it goes in. 1-0. Second goal, I believe this was the one that Christian rolled on, gets the ball, gets on the wing, drives towards the byline, cuts it back. He actually probably would have won a foul and a free kick, but he cuts it back, finds a guy, shot, hits another guy, goes in. But it's getting to the byline. It's cutting it back, getting balls into the box with multiple runners. It's not just a singular or 2 runners. It's 3, 4, 5 runners. How can we get more numbers into the box? How can you put more pressure on that defensive unit? How can we make it challenging for them to defend? And it's utilizing the whole field. It's having more numbers in there. It's making diagonal runs through the box. It's making runs in behind. It's having guys run across each other and be fluid in that front 5, where you have to change who you're marking. It's not just the same guy the whole game. It's, I'm marking Jordan Morris. Now I'm marking Musovski. Now I'm marking Albert Rusnak. Now I'm marking Obed Vargas. Now I'm marking Christian Roldan. Now I'm marking Jesus Ferreira. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm marking Alex Roldan. It's 5, 6, even 7 or 8 different guys that you have to mark and you have to deal with, making different runs throughout the game. It's not just 1 or 2 guys that you have your eye on and you're able to just to sort of be like, one eye here, I know where both these guys are, now I know how to defend. It's, I have to keep my eyes on more guys than I can keep my eyes on at once, because there's so many guys in here and we don't have enough defensive units here and whatnot. And the Sounders did a good job of getting Minnesota United unorganized. I actually thought that they could have even been better. I thought you could have had a little bit quicker tempo. You could have been a little bit better at switching the ball horizontally across the pitch and doing that a little bit more often. But it was very good. And Minnesota United, part of it was they were a little bit unorganized, especially early in the game. But the Sounders did what they had to do. They were pretty dominant for the most part. They had a couple lapses of concentration when they went up, I believe, 3-0. And that's not something you want to do. But, God, what am I saying? Oh my God. A couple lapses of concentration that just can't happen, especially at 3-0, and I understand why that does happen, because you're up 3-0 and it's like we're coasting, it's nearly halftime here, 8 minutes get put on the clock and you lose it and guy just kind of dribbles through, and that you just don't want. That's something you can't really allow to happen. But Offensively, especially, the Sounders looked very strong. They looked pretty dynamic, and if you want to go win in Minnesota, you're going to have to continue that and maybe even switch even a couple more things up to make it more difficult to defend, because now Minnesota United is going to have that game on film, that game on tape, and be like, how can we adjust from that? How can we defend differently than what we did in Game 2 and Game 3? How can we stay more organized? How can we use our home field to our advantage? And the Sounders are going to have to do another job of adapting during the game, adapting pregame, having some new tactics, stuff like that, ready to go when they need to use it. And that's on Brian Schmetzer, that's on the coaching staff, and that's on the players for listening, understanding, watching some film, figuring out what they need to do better, what they can improve on, what needs to be different to break through that Minnesota United defensive unit. Maybe that's not just watching Game 1, that's watching, or not just watching Game 2. I sort of led myself into what I was thinking, but watching Game 1 and Game 2 and seeing what were the differences in each side, how was each team different, how can we change what we did in each of those games and adapt it, mend them together, and become the best version of yourselves here in Game 3, which is a do or die, win or go home type of playoff game, which is what the playoffs are all about. That's what it should be. And Sounders already had one of those in Game 2. They'll now have another one on Saturday afternoon. Hopefully they can win. Hopefully they can adapt, like I said, change what they're doing, and continue to attack dynamically with tons of numbers, finding those direct balls long in defeat, and then getting guys on the run and behind and cutting the ball back from the bylines and using that width to your advantage. As for today, though, that is all from me here on episode 2 of the Doubleheader podcast. This has been a fantastic episode. It's been a blast doing this. We'll be back next Thursday, a week from today, with episode 3. And if you want to hear more content from me, go listen to the On the Diamond and Into the Deep podcast on Spotify or YouTube. That's at Diamond on Deep on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. And then you can listen on the Diamond and Into the Deep podcast on Spotify and YouTube. So if you want to go listen, I would definitely recommend. That's a lot more Mariner stuff. I did my first off-season plan of the season, so go give that a listen if you are a baseball Mariners fan. I will tell you right now, Cardinals were involved in that with a trade, so if you're a Cardinals fan, go listen to that. But for today, as always, thank you guys so much for listening. Follow at Doubleheader Pod on Twitter or on TikTok, and especially Instagram. That's where the most content will be. And peace.